Hey everyone, it's Jen with Spirited Saturdays, and this week we're talking about eating disorders in crisis as it relates to events such as natural disasters or any kind of event that really shakes up and kind of jolts a community, or towns, cities, states, countries, war, for example, traumatic events, even something like the death of a cultural idol that everybody kind of sees eye to eye on. And I want to really bring this into the realm of eating disorders and kind of talk about how that relates and what you could do if you struggle with an eating disorder and something happens that really kind of shakes you up, shakes up your life, shakes up your community. So the first thing I want to talk about is comparison. In times of crisis, we may be quick to compare our suffering to another's. And if you have an eating disorder, you may already be prone to comparing. It might not end at the body because it's not initially about the body. It's about a person's right to feel like they are enough, which in eating disorders might be experienced as thin enough, sick enough, strong enough in that diluted sense. But it stems from the same need to feel like who you are and what you experience is enough. Am I bad off enough to warrant empathy, to own my pain? Was I hurt enough to deserve to ask for help or to deserve the help I'm receiving? But if you get rid of that word enough and just own your experience, you won't need to justify yourself anymore. You need assistance for something. And the fact that someone to the left of you or someone to the right of you needs assistance for something else does not have to affect your willingness to reach out. It does not negate your pain because they're reaching out for assistance that pertains to their own needs. And it's not the same thing you're reaching for. And you have your own unique tools and resources to help you with your own unique kind of pain. And that pain is warranted and you deserve to address it. So know that your level of suffering counts, even if you weren't affected directly by the event or are somewhat physically removed from it. During Hurricane Sandy, I struggled with my right to feel affected, and I'm in New York and still struggling with that. So this kind of has no ending. So that's why it's such a moot, pointless, unnecessary source of suffering to feel like, not enough, because where does that end? I mean, somebody who gets their house destroyed might have that inner turmoil in some way, by saying, well, they didn't lose a person, somebody who loses a person might have, if you still have that inner turmoil, that's not complete, and still have that void, and it doesn't ever end, and there's going to be more and more unnecessary suffering. So it's better to, wherever you are, however you were affected, to say, that's okay for me to feel, it's okay for me to feel upset about that, and to ask for what I need to help get some resolve on it. So I am here in New York. That was a bit of a tangent, but I struggled with my right to feel affected. I was upset. I was very upset during that whole time, during the weeks following. But everybody in my immediate family was spared by the storm in the most critical sense. No houses were destroyed. Everybody was healthy. But I was very, very upset. And on a few levels, I guess a few levels, but the two main ones were I was upset about the ways in which I was affected, or which, my family was affected a little bit. We did have to move things around a bit and give up some comforts, and there was stress in that. There was, a lot of people, some people in my family really, really extended themselves to help out, and we were very, very lucky, or my parents were very, very lucky. So I was upset about the ways in which we were affected, in which my family was affected. I was also upset about the circumstance as a whole, as a community, and I couldn't stop watching, New York 1. I couldn't stop watching the footage of things. And so at times I couldn't tell my sources of of upsetness apart from one another, because my head was a jumbling mess during that time. So the first thing I want to address regarding this is that you do have a right to be upset about however you were affected, and also about how others were affected and how you as a community are affected. Any level of suffering is valid, and when a community is shaken up, it has a ripple effect. And so that even if you weren't personally hurt by it, or you weren't personally targeted, your suffering is valid. Your hurt is valid. You can honor your feelings while still recognizing that others suffered on another kind of level. So let's divert that invalidation and let's savor that recognition of your own and others' suffering and turn it into compassion. Because if you are capable of being upset about something that didn't directly affect you, then you have a lot of compassion, and you can use that to help yourself and others. So recognize your caring as a strength and don't question it. Don't invalidate it. Now, I want to talk a little bit about not having control. I know that's a big word in eating disorders, and so I really find it important to address. So in some ways, being away from a situation might be harder because there may be a feeling of I couldn't assist, or I couldn't stop it, or I couldn't be there to help. So there's a feeling of a lack of control, a lack of access. And often people with eating disorders don't like feeling out of control. And that stems from the same place. Feeling like you can't control something and taking it out on food and your body comes from the same place as feeling like you can't control something and being too far away to manage it and being anxious about that. And so you can manage the anxiety by constructively finding ways to help from afar, and that keeps you connected. That's what I had to do. I had to stay connected. And if that is too overwhelming to find ways to help from afar, you can work on healing yourself first, and which finding ways to help from afar is also about healing yourself. But you can kind of put that in its place, work on healing yourself, and then construct ways to positively affect your community. It can be something so simple like even a Facebook status, or asking somebody how they're doing, and you can experience that ripple effect of your words and your compassion, and you can learn that you count and that you matter and that you have a voice worthy of being heard and responding to. So often people with eating disorders feel like they are invisible on many levels. They feel like they have no voice. They feel like they have no effect, or that sometimes they have an ill effect. And all of these are distortions. And so this is for you. If you reach out in even the smallest way, like I said, just, asking somebody how they're doing, or it could be many, many things, but really doesn't have to be it doesn't have to take much energy. You can see for yourself that your presence is valuable because your actions are affecting others positively. And so you can see it play out in the way it is received by another. And you might feel rewarded from that, and you might smile and feel good about yourself, and that is one of the biggest goals in recovery. Now I want to talk about guilt. Guilt is a huge factor in eating disorders, as we all know. The guilt for eating what you perceive as too much, or just as an example, comes from the same place as the guilt for somehow not helping enough according to your standards, the guilt of being too far away, survivor's guilt. It all comes from the same place, that void, that, regret, or, and it never really ends. You could feel guilty about so many things. And so the point that I'm trying to make is you have nothing to feel guilty about. I shouldn't say the point. The answer to the challenging words. You have nothing to feel guilty about. I don't know how to do that statement justice because it's huge, and it's so intrinsic in eating disorders. And it's such a part of what creates eating disorders and perpetuates. But just know, as you ought to always know, that you are not responsible for making everything better. You do not have to take care of everyone and sacrifice your own self-care, or I should say, at the cost of your own self-care. You do not have to give and give until it hurts. That is not a requirement in life or in crises. Eating disorders can be built upon and perpetuated by that belief, but it's just not true. And now I want to talk about gratitude. Once you realized that you have nothing to feel guilty about, this is a great opportunity to practice gratitude. You can probably practice it all along, but just for the sake of this video and the order of things, because often, you don't want to get mixed up and say, well, I'm grateful for this, but then, oh, I should feel guilty for having this, so just try to separate the two is all I'm saying. But it's a great opportunity to practice gratitude for yourself, for your livelihood, for a community coming together, and for the kindness that comes from that. And finally, and probably most importantly, I want to talk about self-care. Please remember, although crises can trigger people with eating disorders to use behaviors, to have thoughts, remember that you have it within you to treat yourself healthfully. And if that means going back to a meal plan, if you had been off one for a while, that is fine. If it means monitoring yourself a little more closely or a lot more closely, that is fine and necessary. Depending on where you're at in recovery, a crisis might put you in the position, and it's not your fault, of having to grab a tighter handle on recovery. If your brain is too wired from all the chaos, you might need to refer to resources, tools, perhaps go back to a food log if you were doing that, perhaps routine check-ins with your nutritionist or therapist, increased group support, increased access to different meal options, because you might be forgetting, or you might just not be making it a priority, so you might have to create easier access to remembering, to spelling out the options for you, for your meals. Increase reminders to stay on track, setting the alarm on your phone if you need to for meal times or anything like that. Really do your best to try to structure food and sleep in the best that you can. Often in these kinds of situations, we may be thrown about to different locations or just kind of shocked out of our routines. And sleep may be thrown off, and it's understandable. But remember, recovery remains a priority. So now might be the right time to up the relaxation techniques, or to perhaps talk to your doctor about temporarily increasing a medication dose if you struggle with anxiety or depression or dissociation or panic or any number of things. It's okay to need more assistance in times of heightened chaos. Know that an emergency room is an option if you're doing really badly and you can't control it. I myself was having a lot of anxiety and panic during Sandy, and my therapist told me this, and I was prepared to do it if I needed to. You need your strength to get through this. This does not have to be justification for relapse if you don't render it. So take the necessary measures to keep yourself in recovery. Prepare for taking those measures if you know something is about to happen, like a hurricane. Don't deny yourself that. And so remember, you matter. Your health always matters. It is your rock. Quick time check. Oh, oops. Okay. You are not alone. Reach out for support. Please, no matter what, you are not alone. You are never alone. Communal crises bring communities together who aren't even in the immediate vicinity. They bring together volunteer groups from afar, or they bring together people who are affected by the sheer magnitude of something that was out of their control, that they couldn't stop. Interact with your community. Make eye contact. Know that everyone gets it. Sorry. If something like Sandy happens, for example, where transportation is an obstacle and phones have no reception, do your very best to reach out to the people near you. And even if those people aren't your close friends, I know that they're going through this too and will probably equally benefit from your friendship, your reaching out. It's okay to reach out. Okay, and it's okay that you've got to continue to take care of yourself in these critical moments, and you will come out stronger for it. And it's okay not to feel your best, and it's okay to ask for more support when you need it. So hope you all have a good week, and take care.